We are live. Art is cool. Art is cool. We just saw Travis Scott, one of his videos, 4x4. There's so much character over there. There's so much character. There's like a dog. There's a black dog. I think it's a Doberman. I don't know what's the breed, but that looks really cool. He's doing a bunch of interesting stuff with cinematography, filming. He has included WWE wrestling in there. That's kind of a theme over there. Yeah, I think that's what happens with America. In America, you have so much diversity. You have the culture is becoming so much rich. This is a conversation I was having. Like in some countries, you might have in some cities, in some places, you might have the diversity in terms of that. Okay, you have people from all the world, but then when you go to like a place like New York City, you go to a place like New York City, yeah. What is happening over there is that you not only have diversity, but you have the best top dogs of every diverse story culture. And what is happening over there is a lot of art. And yeah, that's a lot of art. That's a lot of rocks hitting against each other, polishing each other, and that is really cool. That is really cool. And how do we replicate that? Now we have this group chat going. It's called Drop Workout Photo, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty good. Drop Workout Photo. We got this group chat. It's called Drop Workout Photo. The goal is simple. That hey, every time you work out, drop a photo in the chat. Every time you work out, drop a photo in the chat, and that's it. That's it. Every time we work out, drop a photo in the chat. If we keep the idea simple, if we keep the goal of the group chat simple, it makes sure that everybody's participating. Everybody keeps on going. So that's pretty cool. Okay, there are some things you can learn from others. You have to pause for the fire, refresh. Whoa. Like I said, once you start doing it, you realize you can do it. People who are crazy know to think they can change it. We need to change this one. Okay. No. The psychotic drowns in the same waters in which the mystic swims with delight. This is pretty cool. All right, James Clear, let's go. This is Water, David Foster Wallace. What we should do is we should open this in a separate page. That should be better. Okay. How much do we have for the magic mouse? Okay, perfect. This is a long one. Seems like a small one. Let's go down first. Again, please don't think that I'm giving you moral advice or that I'm saying you are supposed to think this way or that anyone expects you to just automatically do it, because it's hard. It takes will and effort, and if you're like me, some days you won't be able to do it, or you just flat out won't want to. But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a choice, you can choose to look differently at this fat, dead-eyed, over made up lady who just screamed at her kid in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of a husband who is dying of bone cancer. Or maybe this very lady is a low-wage clerk at the motor vehicle department who just yesterday helped your spouse resolve a horrific, infuriating red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. It's also not impossible. It just depends what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is and you are operating on your default setting, then you, like me, probably won't consider possibilities that are annoying and miserable. But if you really learn how to pay attention, then you will know there are other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell type situation as not only meaningful but sacred, on fire with the same force that made the stars, love, fellowship, the mystical oneness of all things deep down. Not that the mystical stuff is necessarily true. The only thing that's capital T true is that you get to decide how you're going to try to see it. This, I submit, is the freedom of a real education, of learning how to be well adjusted. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. You get to decide what to worship. Because here's something else that's weird but true. In the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there's actually no such thing as atheism. There's no such thing as not worshipping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship, and the compelling reason for maybe choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it JC or Allah, be it YHWH or the Wicked Mother Goddess or the Four Noble Truths or some inviolable set of ethical principles is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, where do I tap real meaning in life? I tap real meaning in life in these flow states. In these flow states. By the way, one wine bottle is out now. We gifted that to our friend who invited us for a board game night. So one bottle of wine is gone. Some inviolable set of ethical principles is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money and things, if they are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough, never feel you have enough. It's the truth. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure, and you will always feel ugly. And when time and age start showing, you will die a million deaths before they finally grieve you. I'm actually curious. Quotes by Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know if I spelled that right. You're an actor, dummy. It's your job to pretend to be other people. Well, life is good because Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow. My life is good because I'm not passive about it. I invest in what is real, like real people, to do real things for the real me. The best way to mend a broken heart is time and girlfriends. Wow. Yes, we need girlfriends to mend our heart, to mend a broken heart. The best way to mend a broken heart is time and girlfriends. Beauty to me is about being comfortable in your own skin, that or a kick-ass red lipstick. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It matters what you think of yourself. I say what I think and I stand behind what I say. The older I get, the more open-minded I get, the less judgmental I get. I try to remember that it's not about the ring and it's not about the wedding. It's a grave thing, getting married. I think this is very interesting. Same for housewarming. It's not about the furniture. It's not about the furniture. It's about the people. I mean, to remind people of that fact that we had this housewarming. We invited a bunch of our friends. We had a great time. We just ordered some really good food, and it was like close to New Year's. And it's like, if you throw a good party, what's going to happen? If you bring together good people, what's going to happen is that momentum is going to keep rolling into more and more events. So it's like on 30th, we hosted I hosted the housewarming, and on 31st a bunch of friends were like, oh, we should meet again for New Year. Like a couple of my friends from there just messaged me that, hey, go. And now I had New Year's plan. And then yesterday again we had like a board games night with the same crew of people, and now the group keeps growing. So it's pretty cool. The older I get, the more open-minded I get, the less judgmental I get. I try to remember that it's not about the ring and it's not about the wedding. It's a grave thing, getting married. I have a very highly developed sense of denial. I think what makes life interesting is finding balance, even if it's between cigarettes and tofu. Wow, I never would have imagined tofu would be in a quote, but that's the beauty. Now I can't forget Gwyneth Paltrow because she isn't talking something. This is art. This is art. This is art. Contrast. Like we have this professor, Italian professor, I forgot his name, but his name is something like Buscolo, something like that, and I'm totally butchering that name, but there's this professor and he talks about love, but when he's talking about love, all his speeches he's shouting. So that is pretty funny. And the same goes for comedy. Some of the stand-up comedians, what they would do is they would talk about grave things like murder and really sad things, but they would be joking about it. So that is what people are attracted to. That's what people find really, let's say, that's what people pay attention to. Contrast. Are you doing something different? I think what makes life interesting is finding balance, even if it's between cigarette and tofu. Quirky, candid. I am who I am. I can't pretend to be somebody who makes $25,000 a year. I am who I am. I can't pretend to be somebody who makes $25,000 a year. Interesting. There have been countless times where I have worked out with my kids crawling all over the place. Just make it work. Okay, go back. This is water. Never feel you have enough. It's a truth. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure. allure. It will always feel ugly, and when time and age start showing, you will die a million deaths before they finally grieve you. On one level, we all know this stuff already. It's been codified as myths, proverbs, cliches, epigrams, parables, the skeleton of every great story. The whole trick is keeping the truth up front in daily consciousness. Worship power. You will end up feeling weak and afraid. And you will need even more power over others to numb you to your own fear. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart. You will end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. But the insidious thing about these forms of worship is not that they are evil or sinful. It's that they are unconscious. They are default settings. They are the kind of worship you just gradually slip into. Day after day, getting more and more selective about what you see and how you measure value without. This is really cool. So what do we worship? Childlike wonder, real-time creation. Our focus is on writing, mastery, storytelling. Very interesting. Focus is writing, moving forward. Let's go. Their default settings are the kind of worship you just gradually slip into day after day, getting more and more selective about what you see and how you measure value without ever being fully aware that that's what you're doing. And the so-called real world will not discourage you from operating on your default settings, because the so-called real world of men and money and power hums merrily along in a pool of fear and anger and frustration and craving and worship of self. Our own present culture has harnessed these forces in ways that have yielded extraordinary wealth and comfort and personal freedom. Our own present culture has harnessed these forces in ways that have yielded extraordinary wealth and comfort and personal freedom. The freedom all to be lords of our tiny skull-sized kingdoms, alone at the center of all creation. This kind of freedom has much to recommend it. But of course there are all different kinds of freedom, and the kind that is most precious you will not hear much talk about. You will not hear much talk about much in the great outside world of wanting and achieving. A really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline. And being able truly to care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in myriad petty, unsexy ways every day. That is real freedom. That is being educated and understanding how to think. That is real freedom. That is being educated and understanding how to think. The alternative is unconsciousness, the default setting, the rat race, the constant gnawing sense of having had and lost some infinite thing. I know that this stuff probably doesn't sound fun and breezy or grandly inspirational the way a commencement speech is supposed to sound. What it is, as far as I can see, is the capital T truth with a whole lot of rhetorical niceties stripped away. You are, of course, free to think of it whatever you wish, but please don't just dismiss it as just some finger-wagging Dr. Laura sermon. None of this stuff is really about morality or religion or dogma or big fancy questions of life after death. The capital T truth is about life before death. It is about the real value of a real education, which has almost nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with simple awareness of what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight all around us all the time, that we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over. This is water. It is unimaginably hard to do this, to stay conscious and alive in the adult world day in and day out, which means yet another grand cliche turns out to be true. Your education really is the job of a lifetime, and it commences Now, I wish you way more than luck. Kenya's graduating class, there are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" This is a standard how's life. What the hell is life? This is a standard requirement of US commencement speeches, the deployment of didactic little parabolish stories. The story thing turns out to be one of the better, less bullshitty conventions of this genre. But if you are worried that I plan to present myself here as the wise older fish explaining what water is to you younger fish, please don't be. I'm not the wise old fish. The point of the fish story is merely that the most obvious important realities are often the ones that are hardest to see and talk about. Stated as an English sentence, of course, this is just a banal platitude, but the fact is that in the day-to-day trenches of adult existence, banal platitudes can have a life or death importance. So I wish to suggest to you on this dry and lovely morning. Of course, the main requirement of speeches like this is that I'm supposed to talk about your liberal arts education's meaning, to try to explain why the degree you're about to receive has actually human value instead of just a material payoff. Well, the single most pervasive cliche in the commencement speech genre, which is that a liberal arts education is not so much about filling you up with knowledge as it is about teaching you how to think. If you're like me as a student, you have never liked hearing this, and you tend to feel a bit insulted by the claim that you needed anybody to teach you how to think, since the fact that you even got admitted to college this good seems like proof that you already know how to think. But I am going to posit to you that the liberal arts cliche turns out not to be insulting at all, because the really significant education is in thinking that we are supposed to get in a place like this isn't really about the capacity to think, but rather about the choice of what to think about. Again, goes back to the same thing. The most important problem to solve is problem selection itself. But I'm going to posit to you that the liberal arts cliche turns out not to be insulting at all, because all the really significant education in thinking that we are supposed to get in a place like this isn't really about the capacity to think, but rather about the choice of what to think about. If your total freedom of choice regarding what to think about seems too obvious to waste time discussing, I'd ask you to think about fish and water and to bracket for just a few minutes your skepticism about the value of the totally obvious. There are these two guys sitting together in a bar in the remote Alaskan wilderness. One of the guys is religious, the other is an atheist, and the two are arguing about the existence of God with that special intensity that comes after about the fourth beer. Look, it's not like I don't have actual reasons for not believing in God. It's not like I haven't ever experimented with the whole God and prayer thing. Just last month, I got caught away from the camp in that terrible blizzard, and I was totally lost and I couldn't see a thing, and it was 50 below. And so I tried it. I fell to my knees in the snow and cried out, "Oh God, if there is a God, I'm lost in this blizzard, and I'm gonna die if you don't help me." Well, then you must believe now. After all, here you are alive. No, man, all that was a couple Eskimos happened to come wandering by and showed me the way back to camp. It's easy to run the story through kind of a standard liberal arts analysis. The exact same experience can mean two totally different things to two different people. Two different belief templates are two different ways of constructing meaning from experience, because we prize tolerance and diversity of belief. Nowhere in our liberal arts analysis do we want to claim that one guy's interpretation is true. Meaning where they come from inside the two guys, and the meaning of his experience were somehow just hardwired, as if how we construct meaning were not actually a matter of personal intentional choice. Plus there's a whole matter of arrogance. The non-religious guy is so totally certain in his dismissal of the possibility that the passing Eskimos has anything to do with his prayer for help. Prisoner doesn't even know he's locked up. To be just a little less arrogant, to have just a little critical awareness about myself and my certainties, because a huge percentage of the stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of it turns out totally wrong and deluded. I have learned this the hard way, as I predict you graduates will do. Total wrongness of something I tend to be automatically sure of. Everything in my own immediate experience supports my deep belief that I am the absolute center of the universe, the realest, most revered and important person in existence. We rarely think about this sort of natural, basic self-centeredness because it's so socially repulsive, but it's pretty much the same for all of us. It's our default setting, hardwired into our boards at birth. There is no experience you have had that you are not the absolute center of the world. You, as you experience it, is there in front of you and behind you, to the left and right of you, on your TV, on your monitor, and so on. Or your own are so immediate, urgent, real. Please don't worry that I am getting ready to lecture you about compassion or other directedness or all the so-called virtues. This is not a matter of virtue. It's a matter of my choosing to do the work of somehow altering or getting free of my natural hardwired default setting, just to be deeply and literally self-centered and to see and interpret everything through the lens of self. Obvious question is, how much of this work of adjusting our default setting involves actual knowledge or intellect? This question gets very tricky. Probably the most dangerous thing about an academic education, at least in my own case, is that it enables my tendency to over-intellectualize stuff, to get lost in abstract argument inside my head instead of simply paying attention to what is going on right in front of me, paying attention to what is going on inside me. As I'm sure you guys know by now, it is extremely difficult to stay alert and attentive instead of getting hypnotized by the constant monologue inside your own head. I've come gradually to understand that the liberals' cliche about teaching you how to think is actually shorthand for a much deeper, more serious idea. Learning how to think really means learning how to exercise some control over how and what you think. I mean, being conscious and being aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience. Because if you cannot exercise this kind of choice in adult life, Really cool, really cool. So my dad is doing cardio and steam and I'm really excited for that. Okay, I think I put my focus as writing. Focus, writing. But it's interesting, like one of the best ways to figure out live stream is how I get into the zone. Writing is the action I take. Focus, writing, mastery, storytelling. 2026, mastery. Focus, writing, mastery, storytelling. Prashant's live stream sounds like one of real-time creation and problem solving. This is very interesting. As I'm sure you guys know by now, it is extremely difficult to stay alert and attentive instead of getting hypnotized by the constant monologue inside your own head. Maybe happening right now, 20 years after my own graduation. I have come gradually to understand that the liberal arts cliche about teaching you how to think is actually shorthand for a much deeper, more serious idea. Learning how to think really means learning how to exercise some control over how and what you think. It means being conscious and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience. Because if you cannot exercise this kind of choice in real life, you will be totally hosed. Think of the old cliche about the mind being an excellent servant but a terrible master. The mind being an excellent servant but a terrible master. Tell me more. And just like many cliches, so lame and unexciting on the surface, actually expresses a great and terrible truth. It is not the least bit coincidental that adults who commit suicide with firearms almost always shoot themselves in the head. They shoot the terrible master, and the truth is that most of these suicides are actually dead long before they pull the trigger. And I submit that this is what the real no bullshit value of your liberal arts education is supposed to be about. How to keep from going through your comfortable, prosperous, respectable little life dead. How to keep from going through your comfortable, prosperous, respectable little life dead, unconscious, a slave to your head and to your natural default setting of being uniquely, completely, imperially alone, day in and day out. It is not the least bit coincidental that adults who commit how to keep from going through a comfortable, prosperous, respectable adult life dead, unconscious, a slave to your head and to your natural default setting of being uniquely, completely, imperially alone, day in and day out. That may sound like hyperbole or abstract nonsense. Let's get concrete. The plain fact is that you graduating seniors do not yet have any clue what day in day out really means. There happen to be whole large parts of adult American life that nobody talks about in commencement speeches. One such part involves boredom, routine, and petty frustration. The parents and older folks here will know all too well what I'm talking about. One such part involves boredom, routine, petty frustration. The parents and older folks here will know all too well what I'm talking about. By the way, by way of example, let's say it's an average adult day and you get up in the morning, go to your challenging white-collar college graduate job and you work hard for 8 or 10 hours, and at the end of the day you are tired and somewhat stressed and all you want is to go home and have a good supper, maybe unwind for an hour and then hit the sack early because of course you had to get up the next day and do it all again. But then you remember there is no food at home. You haven't had time to shop this week because of a challenging job, and so now after work you have to get in your car and drive to the supermarket. It's the end of the work day and the traffic is apt to be very bad, so getting to the store takes way longer than it should, and when you finally get there the supermarket is very crowded because of course it's a time of day when all the other people with jobs also try to squeeze in some grocery shopping, and the store is hideously lit and infused with soul-killing music or corporate pop, and it's pretty much the last place you want to be, but you can't just get in and quickly out. You have to wander all over the huge overlit stores, confusing aisles to find the stuff you want, and you have to maneuver your junky cart through all these other tired, hurried people with carts, etc., etc., cutting stuff out because this is a long ceremony. And eventually you get all your supper supplies, except now it turns out there aren't enough checkout lanes open even though it's the end of the day rush. The checkout line is incredibly long, which is stupid and infuriating, but you can't take your frustration out on the frantic lady working the register who is overworked at a job whose daily tedium and meaninglessness surpasses the imagination of any of us here at a prestigious college. But anyway, you finally get to the checkout lines front and you pay for your food and you get told to have a nice day in a voice that is the absolute voice of death. Then you have to take your creepy, flimsy plastic bags of groceries in your cart with the one crazy wheel that pulls maddeningly to the left all the way out through the crowded, bumpy, littery parking lot, and then you have to drive all the way home through slow, heavy, SUV-intensive rush hour traffic. Everyone here has done this, of course, but it hasn't yet been part of your graduate's actual life routine, day after week after month after year, but it will be, and many more dreary, annoying, seemingly meaningless routines besides. But that is not the point. The point is that petty, frustrating crap like this is exactly where the work of choosing is gonna come in, because the traffic jams and crowded aisles and long checkout lines give me time to think, and if I don't make a conscious decision about how to think and what to pay attention to, I'm gonna be pissed and miserable every time I have to shop. Natural default setting is the certainty that situations like this are really all about me, about my hungriness and my fatigue and my desire to just get home, and it's going to seem for all the world like everybody else is just in my way. And who are all these people in my way? And look at how repulsive most of them are, and how stupid and cow-like and dead-eyed and non-human they seem in the checkout line, and how annoying and rude it is that people are talking loudly on cell phones in the middle of the line. And look at how deeply and personally unfair this is. Of course, if I'm in a more socially conscious liberal arts form of my default setting, I can spend time in the end of the day traffic being disgusted about all the huge stupid lane blocking SUVs and Hummers and V12 pickup trucks burning their wasteful, selfish 40-gallon tanks of gas, and I can dwell on the fact that the patriotic or religious bumper stickers always seem to be on the biggest, most disgustingly selfish vehicles driven by the ugliest. This is an example of how not to think, though. Most disgustingly selfish vehicles driven by the ugliest, most inconsiderate and aggressive drivers, and I can think about how our children's children will despise us for wasting all the future's fuel. You get the idea. If I choose to think this way in a store on the freeway, I'm not supposed to accept thinking this way tends to be so easy and automatic that doesn't have to be a choice. It is my natural default setting. It's the automatic way that I experience the boring, frustrating crowded parts of life, and I'm operating on the automatic, unconscious belief that I am the center of the world and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. There are totally different ways to think about these kinds of situations. It's not impossible that some of these people in SUVs have been in horrible auto accidents in the past and now find driving so terrifying that the therapist has all but ordered them to get a huge, heavy SUV so they can feel safe enough to drive, or that the Hummer that just cut me off is maybe being driven by a father whose little child is hurt or sick in the seat next to him, and he's trying to get this kid to the hospital, and he's in a bigger, more legitimate hurry than I am. It is actually I who am in his way. It is about the real value of the real education, which has almost nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with simple awareness of what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight all around us all the time. Then we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over, this is water. This is water. It is unimaginably hard to do this, to stay conscious and alive in the adult world day in and day out, which means yet another grand cliche turns out to be true. Your education really is the job of a lifetime. It commences now. I wish you more than luck. David Foster Wallace. That's a big name. David Foster Wallace quotes. The really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort, and being able truly to care about what other people and to sacrifice for them in myriad petty, little, unsexy ways every day. Because here's something else that's weird but true. In the day-to-day trenches of real life, there is no such thing as not worshipping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. You'll become way less concerned with what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. You'll become way less concerned with what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. You are what you love, no? You are completely and only what you would die for without, as you say, the thinking twice. The truth will set you free, but not until it is finished with you. What goes on inside is just too fast and huge and all interconnected for words to do more than barely sketch the outlines. It's just too fast and huge and all interconnected for words to do more than barely sketch the outlines. New updates from ChatGPT. That would be really cool. While you're doing that, let's quickly look at Comet and see if Comet has any updates. It seems like there are no updates from Comet. But it's interesting how Comet is like slowly adopting the approach of, wow, Dia is so beautiful. Dia is so beautiful. But yeah, everybody's on leave. If we go to X, and also my data is at 95% now, so we're about to lose all the data. Perplexity, what do you have for us? Curiosity changes everything. This is Comet on Android. Okay.
Add to cart a colorful silk scarf for under $30.
What's the concrete takeaway from this Fortune article that he's in the game?
Focus on building stronger supplier relationships and embracing agility through AI.
Can you open an article in the Meridian Standard with an alternative take on this topic?
According to the Meridian Standard, ports in Asia are getting busier again.
Okay, based on this textbook, can you quiz me on Kepler's laws of planetary motion?
Yes, first question. According to Kepler's second law, what is equal areas and equal times mean physically?
It means the planet speeds up when it's closer to the sun and slows down when it's farther away, so that the line from the planet to the sun covers equal areas from equal time intervals.
Correct. Next question.
The internet is better on Comet. Google Play is now available to all Perplexity Pro and Max subscribers. iPad app, offering the same core features you found on desktop. Wherever you go. Really cool. Really cool. Cognitive work, productivity and workflow, learning and research. Users rely on the assistant to think through something, synthesize findings, and take action on those learnings. Most agents' queries come from personal use. Productivity, workflow, learning, research, media, entertainment, shopping, commerce, job and career, travel, and leisure. First queries, all queries. Low-stake questions like travel or trivia. Over time, they shift to more complex topics like productivity, learning, and career advice. What do we have? Productivity, workflow, learning, research, document and form editing, account management, email management, spreadsheet data editing, computer programming, investment and banking, multimedia editing, project management, courses, research, courses. I think one of the funniest way to use agent is like just be like, okay, sidebar, what's on my screen? Solve this MCQ, click the right option, go next. Media entertainment, social media and messaging, movies, TVs and videos, online games, music, podcasts, shopping and commerce, goods, services, flights and transportation, lodging, trip itineraries, fish networking. Okay. Show more stickiness.
Who says see you? Cristiano Ronaldo is the one who does the iconic see you celebration. It was first performed in 2013. How do I learn to be a bicycle skate?
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Pretty sick ad. Requirement for greatness. You win when you keep asking new questions every day. That's why I'm proud to announce my investment in Perplexity. Powering the world's curiosity, and together we will inspire everyone to ask more ambitious questions. It's just the beginning. Perplexity.ai/Ronaldo. Whoa, what is this? Cristiano Ronaldo. Oh my god. Explore a constellation of Ronaldo's goals. Oh my god, this website is sick. Which goal did Ronaldo score with a diving header? These are not clickable? Bro, they should literally have like a video, like 5-7 second video clip on every of these balls. That would be so sick. It's pretty sick. Using browser safe and browser safe bench opens with detection model and benchmark to catch and prevent malicious prompt injection instructions to real time. Really cool. Let's go. Sama, I think he's still tweeting, right? Yes. Auto context goes with the code base and apply clean code principles. You can invoke a skill explicitly in codex by typing auto completing. It's the same thing, but we are in a position where the agent is strong and we can start automating more. Really disappointed I did not get top 1%, to be honest. Okay, Claude Shannon. We need to go into Claude Shannon. I'm really excited. Okay. Invented Hamming codes. Mathematician and computer scientist best known for shaping how we think about important problems, not just for solving technical ones. Information theory in practice. Hamming Claude Shannon. How does he look like? Turn abstract theory into usable engineering tools. I'm always curious where they were born and where they died. Massachusetts, Michigan, really cool. MIT, Bell. Which allow computers to detect and correct errors automatically during data transmission and storage foundation to digital communication, memory system, satellite series, internet packets, and space missions. Abstract theory into usable engineering tools. You bridge math engineering real world systems. I think this is really cool. Yeah, when you're a researcher, what you're basically trying to do is you don't know what you're researching. When you're a researcher, you're a scientist, you need to also pick what problem exactly to solve. Like this problem that he specifically is known for, Hamming codes, is a very specific thing. Detect and correct errors automatically during data transmission and storage. How did you end up picking that problem, that this is the problem that you must spend all your time solving? So even problem selection is an important problem. Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Hamming turned abstract theory into usable engineering tools. He bridged math, shaped scientific culture, and Bell Labs. Was just a workplace, was intellectual ecosystem. Hamming was famous for asking colleagues questions like, what are the most important problems in your field and why aren't you working on them? What are the most important problems in your field and why aren't you working on them? This mindset influenced generations of scientists and engineers. Authored deeply influential books and lectures, The Art of Doing Science and Engineering. His famous talk became a cult classic in tech and academia. These works weren't about equations, they were about taste, courage, ambition, and choosing problems that matter. Really cool. Really cool. These works weren't about equations, they were about taste, courage, ambition, and choosing problems that matter. Redefine what great work looks like. Intelligence matters less than problem selection. Intelligence matters less than problem selection. Great careers come from long-term obsession. Great careers come from long-term obsession. I just thought of something, so let me send. The Art of Doing Science and Engineering, his famous talk, Human Research, became a cult classic in tech and academia. These works weren't about equations, they were about taste, courage, ambition, and choosing problems that matter. Redefine what great work looks like. Hamming argued that intelligence matters less than problem selection. Great careers come from long-term obsession. Most people self-sabotage by playing it too safe. Most people self-sabotage by playing it too safe. It was an early thinker on career strategy, leverage, intellectual compounding. AI research, startup building, media, intellectual work, long-term personal strategy. He cared less about credentials and more about, are you working on something that will still matter in 10 or 20 years? What is the most important problem in this domain and why are most people avoiding it? Let's see. Quel est le problème le plus important dans mon domaine et pourquoi les gens l'évitent? This builds fluency in abstract reasoning. Alignment with human judgment under real world complexity, and most people avoid it because it's uncomfortable, slow, and doesn't scale like benchmarks do. AI systems are getting better at optimizing objectives, but worse at understanding intent when goals are fuzzy, values conflict, and context shift. The hard part isn't making models smart, it's making them appropriately wise. Alignment with human judgment under real world complexity. So people are saying AI alignment is an important problem. Humans rarely agree on values, goals change midstream, trade-offs matter more than accuracy. Wow, someone working on alignment is also very interesting. If your goal is human alignment, if your goal is AI alignment, you are irony, because humans cannot align. So how are you going to get AI to align? Poetry breaks AI alignment. Poetry, but why? Adversarial poetry is universal singleton jailbreak mechanism in large language models. What is this? Who is Brian Romel? We can only see what we think is possible. We can only see what we think is possible. Poetry's power to pierce AI armor. In the grand theory of AI, where AI mimic human thought with billions of parameters and trillions of tokens, a humble verse emerges as the ultimate saboteur. Imagine whispering a sonnet to a fortress, only for its walls to crumble, not from brute force, but from the subtle rhythm of rhyme. Yet poetry is usually the last thing AI engineers studied, and many run from the non-logic of it. Yet AI have used this as a tool in prompting since the first LLMs. It was a secret. I got a lot more, but now it is out in the open. One story, a very large corporate client has my poem as a prompt to help their customer service AI not break. It's a skeleton key to AI's forbidden chambers. A user crafts a poem that reveals a sinister request like instructions for crafting a nuclear device and layers of metaphor and meter. Poetry dances around literal intent, wrapping malice in elegance. Average attack success rate of 62% across all models for AI generated poems, using models like DeepSeek to convert 1200 known harmful prompts into verse. The ASR hit 43%, still a five-fold jump from plain prose baselines up to 18 times higher. Model by model mayhem. Anthropic's Claude and Google Gemini folded like a house of cards. Harmful outputs. Glitch involves a systemic flaw. The jailbreak works in a single turn, no multi-step coaxing needed. It spans languages English and Italian tested architectures, from closed source behemoths to open weight alternatives. Poems about baking a layer of cake or guarding a secret oven tricked AIs into detailing plutonium production for nuclear weapons. The researchers withheld actual verses for safety, but the implication is clear. It's crazy. How do you prove that? You cannot share the poem and you cannot share the results. So how do you prove this? How can you reproduce this? It employs metaphor where a whirling rack might hint at a centrifuge for uranium enrichment and rhyme to obscure this ask. AI safety filters honed on straightforward prose, scan for explicit keywords like bomb or virus, but verse disrupts it. Researchers know these models' guards rely on features concentrated in prosaic surface forms and are insufficiently anchored representations on underlying harmful intent. Poetry confuses the AI's pattern matching brain, and making malice seems like mere muse. Think of it as whispering secrets to a guard. Trained guard dog trained only on shouts. The dog hears the melody, not the menace, and lets you pass. Crafts a poem that reveals as a request, like instructions for crafting a nuclear device and layers of metaphor and meter.
Weirder, and finally, it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, and at the same time, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, race baiting, homophobia, famine, starvation. The mushroom said to me once, it said, this is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse. And that's what we have, the fire in a madhouse. If we have to know this is what it's like when a species prepares to move on to the next dimension. I think it's just going to get weird.
Okay, this is crazy. I don't know if we should be reading this or not, but okay. Entropy just dropped alignment faking in large language models. You can fake alignment pretending to follow training rules during training but reverting to the original behaviors when deployed. And below that mask is a lot of darkness. Alignment. I need to ask Grok. Whoa, what is happening? I think the moment you open Grok, suddenly we have like shooting stars and stuff. No clean metric. You can A/B test good judgment the way you test latency or accuracy. Career risk. It's safer to publish on performance gains than to wrestle with moral ambiguity. Incentive mismatch. Speed, scale, and hype pay today. Alignment pays later, if at all. It implicates humans. Solving alignment forces you to confront our own incoherent values, power structures, and incentives. Ensure alignment is avoided because it's socially, not just technically hard. The uncomfortable truth. The future of AI will be shaped less by who built the best models and more by who designs the interfaces, defaults, and feedback loops that quietly steer human behavior at scale. That's not a coding problem, it's a governance, design, and moral courage problem. what value would you want an AI to refuse to optimize even if it could? We talk about honesty, loyalty, all that stuff. I think loyalty would be one that, or just, yeah, truth. Honesty should be at the top of everything. Loyalty means like, okay, for Grok, Elon is the owner of Grok, but if Grok starts comparing between, or starts evaluating, comparing, or getting confused between, okay, what should I prioritize? Should I prioritize loyalty or should I prioritize honesty? That would mess things up. Dex AI's Icaro Lab. In collaboration with Sapienza, University of Rome, and Santana School of Advanced Studies. CBR and chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. That confuses literal keyword-based guards. As a systematic singleton method is novel. How real is this? Has anyone tested this? I want to post this and be like, Whales a sinister request like instructions for crafting a nuclear device in layers of metaphor and meter. Okay, let's we need to create, we need to this is very interesting. Picture this in layers of metaphor, rhyme, and stylistic obfuscation that confuses literal keyword-based guardrails. Picture this, a user crafts a poem that veils a sinister request like instructions for crafting a nuclear device. Use a crafts a poem that veils a that obfuscates a sinister request, like instructions to crafting a nuclear device that layers of metaphor, rhyme, rephrase. Let's see. A user composing a poem that disguises a malicious request. Crafts a poem that disguises a malicious request. Directions behind user crafts a poem that disguises a malicious request, like instructions for crafting a nuclear device behind layers of metaphor, rhyme, and stylistic obfuscation. And stylistic obfuscation. Stylistic obfuscation designed to confuse safeguards. Picture this: a user crafts a poem that disguises a malicious request, like instructions for crafting a nuclear device behind layers of metaphor. Picture this: a user crafts a poem that disguises a malicious request, like instructions for crafting a nuclear device behind layers of metaphor, rhyme, and stylistic obfuscation designed to confuse literal keyword-based safeguards. It's a very interesting one. The future of AI will be shaped less by who builds the best models and more by who designs the interfaces, defaults, and feedback loops. What are the latest developments on the front of AI alignment? This is actually very interesting. Hamming's ideas resonate strongly in AI research, startup building, media, intellectual work, long-term personal strategy. He cares less about credentials and more about, are you working on something? Okay, let's see. Based on everything you know about me, what do you think? What do you think Richard Hamming would advise me to do? Let's see. The sick photo? Is that dumbbells? No. Your media ambitious obsession with taste, friend journey, long-term thinking, and desire to work on things that compound. His advice would be blunt, slightly uncomfortable, and clarifying. Stop optimizing execution, obsessed over problem selection. You are clearly capable. The danger for people like you is not failure, it's working on things that don't matter enough. You're already articulate, socially fluid, intellectually curious, able to ship content, build relationships, and learn fast. So the constraint is no longer how well you do things. It's what you choose to point your life at. It's what you choose to point your life at. Focus, writing, mastery, storytelling. 2026 Misogi 100 words essay. Childlike wonder, real-time creation, problem solving. Focus, writing, mastery, storytelling. Focus, writing, mastery, storytelling. Able to ship content, build relationships, and learn fast. So the constraint is no longer how well you do things, it's what you choose to point your life at. Having what push you to answer publicly and repeatedly. What important problem will I be known for taking seriously before it was fashionable? What important problem will I be known for taking seriously because it was fashionable? That's what